Thank you for watching the last episode of differences between the stories in the Quran and the Bible. I finished reading the Quran all the way through for a second time. In the Quran, Isa prophesies about a prophet named Ahmad to come after him. Surah 61, Ayah 6. And in the Bible, Jesus made no prophecies about a prophet named Ahmad or Muhammad. In my religion, we don't even believe Jesus Christ specifically prophesied about Joseph Smith. There are other prophecies about Joseph Smith in the Bible, but not quotes from Jesus in the New Testament. If I can go on a slight tangent, why would the Quran call Jesus Isa? That doesn't make sense to me. Because Jesus' real name was Yeshua, or Yahushua. Jesus is a transliteration of Yahushua into Greek. Shouldn't an Arabic book have an Arabic version of Yeshua? Isn't there an Arabic word? Since Arabic and Hebrew are so similar, isn't there an Arabic word that sounds a lot more like Yeshua than Isa? And one thing that doesn't make sense to me is saying that Muhammad and Ahmad are just a variation of the same name. They don't sound that much alike. And I've got the same complaint about somebody named John being called Jack. Ack. Doesn't make any sense to me. You know, John is a really short name. I don't see where the need is to change it, to make it shorter. I don't see how you go from John to Jack. There's some names in English that don't make sense to me there. Now, I understand, like, if somebody's name is Jonathan and they go by John. Elizabeth and they go by Liz. Another English twisting of a name that doesn't make sense to me is if somebody's name is James and they're called Jim. Does James take a long time to say? I thought that was a really short name. Okay, now in the Quran, Allah gave triumph to those who were correct. It says that there was a dispute among the Jews at the time of Jesus. So I guess that should mean Jews and Christians, or the Jewish Christians. And so these verses in Surah 61, Ayah 14, make it look like the Quran is saying there never was a great apostasy, or a time when there was no true church and people stopped following the truth. But in the Bible, in Thessalonians, an apostasy is very clearly prophesied by Paul. But if Surah 61:14 is correct, then that disproves Islam. Because the Christians who became uppermost and won the debate were the ones who said that Jesus said he was the Son of God. The ones that said that Jesus said he was God. The ones that say that Jesus got crucified on the cross and resurrected. So, if Surah 61 verse 14 is correct and the Quran and Islam is false, or at least false on that one point or issue. Okay, in the Quran, Noah's wife is a disbeliever, Pharaoh's wife is a believer. Surah 66, ayahs 10 and 11. In the Bible, this is one of those differences that I'm still putting it on the list. But it's not the Bible is silent on this one, but I would guess that a prophet of God, especially one so important like Noah, who's going to repopulate the entire earth after a worldwide flood, kills everybody else that's on earth, I would think that he would end up with a righteous wife, and not a disbeliever for a wife. But that's me doing some assuming and guessing. And the Pharaoh's wife being a believer. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't say the opposite of that. But that would be a really fun fact for the Bible to have in it. I would guess that she was not a believer, although that is my guess, and the Bible's not explicit on that. In the Quran, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Moses. Surah 66, Ayah 12. In the Bible, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is about 1,600 years after Miriam, the sister of Moses. Mary and Miriam, for those of you who don't know, when they're transliterated into Arabic, both become Miriam. They both become the same word, the same name. In the Quran, Pharaoh is a Noah's flood survivor, or the Quran switches stories without letting you know. Yeah, it overuses pronouns. That can happen. And Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed in Noah's flood. In the Bible, Pharaoh wasn't in Noah's flood. Sodom and Gomorrah were hundreds of years apart from the flood, and Pharaoh was not a righteous man. If Pharaoh was a righteous man, he would have done what Moses told him to do. Let's break this down a little bit more. I'm working with two translations of the Quran on this project. One printed by the Saudi Arabian government in Saudi Arabia by believers in Islam. The other translated and published by I'm not sure what his citizenship is now, but a man who grew up in Egypt and has been a Christian his whole life. And the one book has things in parentheses that are not the wording in the Quran, but interpretation or a clarification where it was needed. And that one with the things in parentheses to give you interpretation and clarification, it talks about, well, in both of them, talks about Pharaoh being a Noah's flood survivor, or talks about Pharaoh doing something. And in the Quran printed in Saudi Arabia, it has in parentheses in the next verse, parentheses, Noah's flood. But it's not clear. The other one does not have the parentheses and just tells you what is the actual thing in the Quran translated into English, and it just makes it look like it's talking about the cities or time of Pharaoh. So that's why I say maybe it's saying Pharaoh was there at Noah's flood. Maybe it's just not clear, and it switches subjects without letting you know what the subject is, and uses pronouns too much when it should have used the name of the place and establish what you're talking about before using pronouns. I just realized I can't see my timer. There's a pot in the way. Okay. In the Quran, God has no son. Surah 72, Ayah 3. In the Bible, God has a son. In the Quran, Moses is called in a valley. That's Surah 79, Ayah 16. In the Bible, Moses is called on Mount Horeb. Why did I write Horeb? Oh, I'm sure it's Horeb B. Not a valley. This is Exodus chapter 3. In defense of the Quran on this one, they could be right, they both could be right, if Moses was called by God in a smaller valley inside of a mountain range. Because there are such things. And in the Quran, God has no son again. In the Bible, God has a son. Surah 112. And that's it. Thank you for joining me on this project. Do I have any concluding thoughts? Well, it's good to go through the Quran again and fact check some things. After reading the Quran again, I'm confused by peaceful, nonviolent Muslims. But I'm appreciative. Thank you, believers in the Quran who are not trying to kill me and wage war against me, despite the verses I saw that make it look like that's what you're supposed to do. Maybe I was seeing it wrong. Please continue. And, yep, the best way to learn about what a religion teaches or believes is to read their book. Not to say, I have I know a Muslim who does this, doesn't do that. Well, that's not what the religion teaches. That's what one person does. There are people who don't follow what their religion teaches. I know, I could name names, if the goal of this video is to embarrass people, of people who are Mormons. They've been baptized into the church, been members for years, who drink coffee, drink alcohol, drink tea, have sex outside of marriage. That doesn't mean that's what the church teaches. So to know what Islam teaches, look at their books, not at Judy Zasser. So thank you for watching this. Have a good day. And if you have an opinion about what Islamic book I should read next for my next big YouTube project, put it in the comments of the video that I put in the comments of this one, because I have my heart set on reading directly from the book, not my interpretation, not me reading and then summarizing for you, but me reading directly from an Islamic book, so that you and I, so we can all learn what that religion actually teaches and believes. So, thank you. Have a good day.